Sork from Sork HC, employee attachment expert. So we're going to be talking about how to keep employees engaged in the first 90 days and also beyond that period how we can ensure that they have the nicest and most engaging start to a new company.
Thank you.
So why do you think employee engagement is important and how also does it affect the business overall?
Engagement is really describing the emotional bond or the connection of an individual to the organisation that they're actually working for, and the strength of that bond that actually then drives a level of effort and therefore performance in their roles. So engagement is incredibly important to any organisation, for any individual employee, to ensure that they are turning up and doing the best job that they can, versus someone who may have a lower level of engagement who actually turns up and does a lower than their best effort job. So it directly impacts the performance of the organisation.
Yeah, to stop people that are just actually turning up and going through the motions, if you like.
Most organisations have geared themselves to do an induction or an onboarding process. That's right. Now, historically, what they've done in that is focus very much on what they want. And what we've been able to show through attachment research and attachment findings is, though that is important and should happen, the employer should be assessing the employee's competency and fit. What is equally important is actually the perceptions that the employee has about whether they want to be there or not. So that is actually what we're talking about within attachment. It is the perceptions of the employee that forms during that critical period of time.
Yeah, absolutely. And are there anything, conversely, are there any factors that you think can contribute to employees actually feeling detached in that first 90 days? Yeah,
absolutely. So when you have a look at the specific attachment phase, in any social structure, but specifically within a working environment, there are 4 core perceptions that are developed in attachment that lead to a strength of attachment bond or conversely a lower level of attachment. That's right. And so those 4 core perceptions are security, trust and value, acceptance and belonging. Now, without going into a lot of detail on each of those, it is important that the manager be aware that the experiences that the employee is having over that first 120 days, that is significantly influenced by what the manager creates for them in that experience, is going to lead to a level of strength of bond on those 4 core perceptions. So the higher the level of perception of security, trust and value, acceptance and belonging, then the more attached the employee is.
I mean, in your experience, without naming any names per se, are there any shockers or any instances that you've seen?
I'm not going to name names. There are some shocking stories. Gloves off. I mean, there are organisations and managers who choose not to be there on day one when they've got a new employee who starts, and that's a big no-no. I mean, one of the things that employees expect is that the person they're going to be reporting to is actually there to welcome them in the morning and take them around and introduce them. Other shocking stories are that people are left waiting outside a secure building because they don't have security passes to come in. People are promised, one of the big ones we're getting at the moment that we're seeing is, as part of the package, if you like, the expectations of the employee is that they've been told they're going to get a new mobile phone or an iPad or something like that, and they turn up on day one, and in fact they're getting an iPhone and an iPad. It just happens to be that they're getting the manager's second-hand one because the manager actually got the new one. So little things like that, which don't seem that big to the people who are conducting the process.
Yeah, it just doesn't give that feeling of being valued.
That's right. I think every organisation and probably most managers would be able to say there's been at least one experience that I've had where I have not done the best by a new employee starting.
In hindsight.
And we're human. Things happen. Unpredictable, uncontrollable circumstances arrive. However, when you have a look at the preparation associated with having someone joining your organisation, and you think about the time, energy, effort and cost that has gone into finding the right person to find the role, recruiting them, so attracting and recruiting them, and then you think about what it is that you want to do to either increase the attachment or potentially lead to low attachment, most managers would probably be able to say there is more I can do. There is an increased risk of attrition
Okay.
So there's a greater risk that the employee will be susceptible to other opportunities in the marketplace.
Yeah.
And then the second thing is that it will impact their discretionary effort, so their willingness to apply themselves in their role, and it will have therefore a flow-on impact to the performance of the employee as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And are there any, if you like, telltale signs or anything that managers can look out for?
Yeah, attachment in terms of the strength of attachment is an interesting one, because just as soon as a manager thinks they know what the attachment level is, they're probably wrong.
They're probably wrong. Never
in fact, we were able to demonstrate that with managers that were asked to rate what they thought the attachment level was of a new employee, and then compared that to the actual measure of the attachment level of the employee, over 2/3 of those managers got it wrong. So when you have a look at what managers think is going on, whether it's high, moderate or low in terms of attachment, there is enough occasion that it could be wrong that makes it worthwhile doing something other than just guessing or assuming that they know.
It's quite a hard one though, I mean, particularly in different environments, because whenever, me personally, whenever I've worked with people and you ask them how you're getting on, how you're liking things, and sometimes, the natural response will be, yes,
fine.
Everything's fine.
Yeah.
Are there any types of questions or any ways that you could try and gauge more information?
The key to getting a greater insight is to ask some specific questions around specific drivers, and to do that in a way that doesn't mean that the employee is feeling that there is an emotional cost to saying something that may be perceived the wrong way.
Yeah.
So when you have a look at the way that we recommend measuring and understanding attachment, that is why we go down the pathway of recommending the external third-party objective survey measurement with the employee, which actually focuses on their experience over the 120 days, which we then associate with the impact of the manager in that period of time. Rather than assuming they know what's going on, we recommend that it's measured, and when you measure something, you can then address it in a meaningful way.
Absolutely. In conclusion, would you say that there's maybe top 3 tips that you've got to ensure that the maximum attachment is created?
Yeah, first and foremost, managers need to accept and own the responsibility for the attachment perceptions that are formed of the new employee. Too easily do organisations where there is an HR function or a learning and development function, managers often defer responsibility to those functions. When it comes to attachment perceptions, there is no escaping it. Over 80% of the perceptions that form during the critical attachment period come from the behavioural impact of the manager. And so the manager knowing that, accepting that and owning the responsibility for that is the first thing I would say. Second, be aware of the framework, the perception framework that the employee is measuring, not what you're measuring to determine if the employee fits or not, but what the employee is measuring. And understand that framework so that you can have active and regular dialogue throughout the first 120 days around that framework. The third tip I would say is measure it. So if you get a chance at an appropriate stage to do an accurate measure of those perceptions, when you get that measurement back, then you can address any areas that are weaker than you thought that they were or should be. And so using an instrument like the attachment inventory, the employee attachment inventory, allows them to do that. That's right. So attachment is something that can and should be measured by any manager or organisation who is employing staff, regardless of the size. But if you are looking to have an accurate, controlled measure delivered by a third party, we're very proud to be the organisation that has developed the employee attachment inventory, which is a world-first measurement inventory in this space. People who would like to go down that pathway should contact us. And they can do so by either logging on to our blog site and finding information out there, which is www.employeeattachment.com, or they can contact us through the Sork HC website, which is www.sorkhc.com.au.
Brilliant. Brilliant.